listening to the Bearded Theologians podcast hosted by Matt Franks.
And
Did
Zach
not
Bechtold?
did not come off the tongue very well today.
No, I didn't. You can try that
Uh
again?
no, we're good.
You
I
can't
just
say the podcast name. I couldn't say my name last week. We're doing great.
it's the dog days of summer for sure, which is another
Yeah.
podcast for another day. Um we are continuing our series looking at First Peter, and this week we're in chapter 4, and we're going to look at 4:12 through 19. And I'm actually going to throw another monkey in the wrench, and I'm actually going to read the scripture today. Yeah, I
Whoa!
know. Things like that can happen from time to time, or some people prayed hard enough and it happened.
Good job,
Um,
Sandy.
so here we go. Dear friends, don't be surprised about the fiery trials that have come among you to test you. These are not strange happenings. Instead, rejoice as you share Christ's suffering. You share his suffering now so that you may also have overwhelming joy when his glory is revealed. If you are mocked because of Christ's name, you are blessed. For the spirit of glory, indeed, the spirit of God rests on you. Now, none of you should suffer as a murderer or thief or evildoer or rebel, but don't be ashamed if you suffer as one who belongs to Christ. Rather, honor God as you bear Christ's name. Give honor to God, because it's time for judgment to begin with God's own household. But if judgment starts with us, what will happen to those who refuse to believe God's good news? If the righteous are barely rescued, what will happen to the godless and sinful? So then, those who suffer because they follow God's will should commit their lives to a trustworthy creator by doing what is right. Zach, as you heard this today, what spoke to you?
I think it's that last little line. So then those who, yeah, so then those who suffer because they follow uh, God's will should commit their lives to a trustworthy creator by doing what is right. Um, this whole section follows like all of what where we ended last week in chapter 3 all the way through chapter 4 to this point. It's talking about Christ's suffering and what that means, setting this up as a if you're going to follow Jesus, this is what this means. And I think that that last little bit is really vital to what it means. I think oftentimes I've heard people use this verse or even just the idea of suffering because we're Christians, suffering because we follow Jesus, suffering in Christ's name, all of that used fairly inappropriately and harmfully in saying, well, when somebody disagrees with me because I'm a Christian, I'm suffering. It's a form of oppression, and it's not. Because I think that last little bit is what brings it into reality that if we're going to follow Jesus, we commit ourselves to doing what is right, which means we actually have to do something. We have to live into the teachings of Christ. We can't just whine and cry when we don't get a Christmas cup at Starbucks, or we can't say the Lord's Prayer somewhere, or somebody doesn't let us do what we want because we think it's right and good and make everybody do and live the way we want them to. Rather, it's how we live. It's how we live out our faith in a way that does good in this world and shares the love and grace of Christ, meaning it's going to be hard. We're going to get pushback. There's going to be people who disagree or a number of things. Again, doesn't equal oppression or injustice. It's hard, right? Because we live in a world full of people and full of evil and full of all kinds of things that are looking to do the exact opposite of what Christ's love and grace does. And for me, that's just where I focus on this idea of suffering for the sake of Christ, meaning if we're going to live out this life, It's not going to be all unicorns and rainbows. It's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult at times, um, because that's life, and we're, that verse talking about we're set apart, right? This is that we're set apart to do good things, and because of that, it's hard. It's not an easy thing. So, I think for me, that last little line just of commit yourselves, commit your lives to a trustworthy creator by doing what is right really sums up the honoring God, the living this out and knowing that it may be hard or will be hard. What about you,
Well,
Matthew? What catches your, oh, go ahead.
well, it's funny because like the first sentence, dear
Mhm.
friends, don't be surprised about the fiery
Don't be
trials that come
surprised.
among you to test you.
Yeah.
Like, I have a hard time with Christianity that says, give your life to God and everything will be all right.
Yes.
I have a hard time with it.
Same.
I have a hard time with it because, like, in my life, my experience doesn't like, I've had struggles, I've had
Hmm.
suffering, I've had um, things that have not been easy to navigate. Um, but I wouldn't think of it as suffering from like an oppression, like
Hmm.
some of our people of color that are struggling with right now in our world. Just living in our country. If you're a certain color and or look or have a certain name or whatever, that there's oppression there.
Hmm.
But because I stubbed my toe, that's not the suffering like that one would assume.
Hmm.
Or my baseball team had a bad game. That doesn't dictate my, that's not suffering, or a bad year, or bad season, or bad 2 seasons or 3 seasons, depending. I mean,
Right. Well,
um,
you think about your faith, you can hide your faith, right?
yeah,
Good, bad, right, or wrong. People don't inherently know you're a Christian,
yeah.
right? Skin color, race, gender, sexuality, things like that are a little more prominent. You can't hide those, right? That's different. You're exactly right. That's a different kind of suffering and oppression.
But I do want to say that people do suffer,
Hmm.
and that we shouldn't say that our suffering, like if you're going through a tough time, or if you're going through some suffering, or you're experiencing it, it doesn't mean that you should be minimalized, in other ways. Like I think sometimes when people like, I remember sitting with a congregant who had lost a loved one, and they're like, my suffering is nothing compared to what's going on in the world. Like, no, but your
Mm-hmm.
suffering is suffering. Like you're going through a hard time, you're going through some difficulty, and I just, where does my help come from?
Hmm.
That psalm, my help comes from you, Lord, comes from the heavens. I'm almost getting the hymn or the song in my
Hmm.
head
Yeah.
more than I am
Yeah.
the psalm. But I also think too that we have to, part of our job as followers of Jesus is to recognize where there's suffering in our communities,
Hmm.
and help stand in the gap of that, and
Hmm.
help alleviate the suffering, and the oppressed. And it may be as simple as just saying, hey, I'm here for you. Like if you need to talk, if you need to bounce something off of me, or if you need to help with resources, I can help resource you. Like let's figure out how we can attack this together. And it's together. It's not the white knight kind of syndrome that tends to play out sometimes when we talk about helping people, but really like how can we work on this together? um I really do believe that our faith is called to help alleviate suffering in this world. I'm wearing a shirt that reminds us that we
That's what I was
are
gonna say. Yeah.
that reminds us that it's our task as United Methodists. And if you're not United Methodist, then I'm sure in some way your faith tradition may have something along similar lines. If not, and that's your jam, maybe you need to find a new faith tradition, because there are some out there that are dedicated towards that. But I also think too that our faith should be grounded in the hope of what is to come, and that this is only a season.
Hmm.
And that, as I was thinking, as I was reading, like I just couldn't help but think of the the first line, like we shouldn't be surprised. Like things are going to happen. You're going to go through difficult times. But the thing I kept thinking about is where do we lean towards in these difficult seasons? And I would hope you would say God, and I would hope you say your faith community. But I also have found that there are those in certain faith traditions, in certain Christian circles, that don't preach the idea of we're in this together, and that our faith is a communal faith, and there are faith communities that preach individualism, and we're not individualized. We are connected in more ways than we ever imagined. And if we can leave into the connection in the midst of suffering, we can make it a little. It can alleviate it in some ways, not necessarily get rid of it, but maybe alleviate it.
Well, and even the idea that again, some of those same faith traditions, if not the same faith traditions, teach and preach the idea that if you are suffering, it's because you've done something
Mm-hmm.
wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And this passage debunks that completely, right? Um, if you're going to follow Christ and you're doing good and sharing the gospel, suffering happens. The difference is we don't do it alone. We have a community, we have a people, we have a God who loves us deeply and walks with us. And Wesley's notes in my little Bible here, I think, frame that great, and in what this means. It says, therefore, they rejoice in the suffering, but this applies only for unjust suffering, for their excellence is following Christ. Bad behavior will bring judgment, especially the bad behavior of anyone who bears Christ's name. If doing good brings suffering, then God, faithful and creative, is ever reliable, in whose truth, love, and power we may safely trust. And and that's it, right? Exactly what you're talking about. We don't do this alone. We have a God that walks this life with us through the Holy Spirit. We have a community of people, and suffering isn't a result. Sometimes it's a result of us doing stupid things, but often it's not because the human experience includes that, like you said. And how do we hold people together in grace and love in that? Because we're all going to experience it at some point. And the easiest thing that we do inherently as people is recluse, is get really isolated in the midst of suffering, and think we're the only ones that have ever gone through that. And I think this is just pointing to exactly what you said, that idea of community and a communal faith that um, when we are suffering, we do this together, and that suffering dissipates a little bit. Still there, still hurts,
Yeah.
but we're carrying the burden together.
Well, and I definitely think that just thinking about this and then thinking about what we talked about last week,
Mhm.
um, we have to lean in. And I feel like it's countercultural to lean in for one another. I think even as a pastor, I'm seeing where more people are not sharing what's going on in their lives,
Hmm. Hmm.
and then we have to like like pry it out of them just to say, hey, when are you having surgery? Like, I know you're having surgery, you mentioned it, you know.
Hmm.
um and hey, I want to pray with you, I want to be, you know and I would hope that we can craft spaces for our people to be more vulnerable, to be more open with ourselves. Because when we can do that, we're truly living in what I consider like an authentic faith of honesty.
Hmm.
And if anything blew my mind when I first started, I remember one of the first things I struggled with is when I first started following Jesus was like how not open people were, even though they
Hmm.
said that they were caring for each other.
Hmm.
And I feel like that's even regressed more as we've become more of an individualistic society. Burger King, have it your way, those kind of things. That we don't know what's going on in people's lives, we don't create that space. Now we may in some ways, but like in a true, unless we create that space for it, like, not that we have to just like stand up every Sunday and have a testimony of that kind of thing
Sure.
nature, but to like know that, hey, Tom lost a daughter 6 months ago. Like, how's Tom doing? Like, nobody's,
Yeah.
like those kind of spaces I think are important. And I think that if we can work towards alleviating suffering in whatever forms it presents itself, we're doing the work of the kingdom.
I wonder too, if things haven't changed so much, it just feels like they've changed and we've become more private because of I'm going to talk bad about social media for a minute. And I don't think it's inherently bad, but because we see so much and have so much access to people's information that when people don't share with us, it feels like we've had this shift where all along it's probably been consistent with that. We just see so much more of other people and other things because we have access to social media and that kind of thing that it feels like we have um, reclused a little bit and gone back into isolation. Whereas probably it's the same, and we've had the same problem of drawing that out forever. But it feels harder and different now because we have so much more access to information.
I would say yes, but and the
Yeah,
but
of course.
is it's my older generation that I'm running more into sharing and being open about what's going on. Whereas some of the younger, I can either I know because I pay attention to the social
Hmm.
media stuff, or hey, I noticed you're looking a little down today. What's going on? And I
Hmm.
feel like they're willing to share. Whereas in the older generation, like I can't. There are some times where like there's and not everybody, but some people are so stone faced that I couldn't even tell if they were happy.
Hmm.
They may be happy because their team won the World Series, and like I wouldn't know because that's just who they are.
Hmm.
And I really do believe that we have forgotten how to create space for people to
Yeah, which is
share the
which is
story.
essentially what I'm getting at
Yeah.
is how do we create that
Yeah.
space that's intentional and faithful and meaningful, right?
Yeah. There's a really great book on how to tell a story by the people who do Moth Radio Hour. And they talk about creating a space of vulnerability, a space of honesty, and like how to tell a story, but like it's your story, not just telling a random Fred Craddock story. um, but there's power in our stories. I feel like I'm tapping into my sermon a little bit,
Hmm.
but if we can craft spaces for people to share their stories, it in some ways it can help. Hey, oh wow, they went through that too. Like, oh, maybe I can talk with them about that, or I feel comfortable with them because they're willing to be open about who they are or what's going on in their lives. I wish we'd do more of that in
Yeah.
some ways.
I,
Um,
it, I mean,
and
it's funny. I'm preaching the Job. I'm preaching the
you're
Job the
preaching the
next
Job.
5 weeks. And the first two sermons are when the world falls apart and unhelpful friends when theology hurts, right? One, what do we do when the world falls apart? And then how do we as a community surround people faithfully and hopefully, um, and not with fun little buzzword sayings and things
Yeah.
that we are well-meaning but hurt.
It's funny you brought that up. I was watching Mission Impossible the other day, and the person that he has to contact him through Job in the
Mm,
Bible. And that whole
nice,
scene just kind of brought that up in my head.
nice.
One of the things that we've been trying to do over the last it's like a couple of years now is talking about showing what vulnerability can look like in an online space. And we've been asking this question: how is it with your soul, or where have you seen God at work in your life? Since we last were on Zoom. And so, Zach, where have you seen God at work in your life since the last time we were doing this?
Um, um, I guess on Sunday, I my sermon was about shame and how do we um what is shame? How do we move away from shame and how do we not shame people? How is that not our go-to? And when shame has happened, how do we help people heal? And I if you follow me on Facebook, you know that I asked this question of where have you experienced shame and how did you heal from it? And I get a handful of responses publicly, and I get a whole bunch of responses privately, which is vastly different than a few weeks ago when I asked people to send me pictures of love, and I had over 100 people just publicly post pictures, which told me a whole lot about how we feel about love and experience that, and a whole lot about how we experience and handle our shame. And so I had the opportunity to share some of those stories, but I shared, talking about being vulnerable, shared a bit of my own and the shame that I've carried in my ministry from being told I wasn't smart enough, wasn't educated enough, and would never shake out to be a pastor, and just feeding into that shame that I'll never be enough. And I had a couple of dear saints of people who came up after church and uh, often are some of my huggers and gave me a hug. And as these two different folks gave me a hug, they just whispered into my ear and said, "You are enough. We're glad you're here. Don't listen to that nonsense." And it just was just one of those moments of thank you. Needed to hear that, especially at a space where I really want to tell that story. Didn't want to be that level of vulnerable. Those are hard stories to tell and to own and to be into and to remember. Because even though that shame, I've healed from that shame, the wound, the scars are still there, right? They still hurt sometimes. So just those beautiful ways where people show up in those moments for us, like you said, those moments of suffering, it's community that matters. It's our faith together matters. So it was nice to be able to just be present in that moment and receive those affirmations fully, right? Fully from the Holy Spirit, fully from where God's working in people's lives. What about you?
Um, I um encountered a difficult situation yesterday. Um, I don't want to really go into full detail on it, but um, watching God work through community, um, and resources appeared and things happened, and watching all that happen, like literally, it's kind of one of those things like watching it from like up here, but you're seeing it like down here, and it's all happening in real time, and you're just seeing God work through all these people and all these things, and like working towards creating safer spaces and all those things. Like it was just so beautiful to watch. Stressful, yes, but beautiful. I was just amazed at how God was working through all these people that were helping through this situation, and it was just powerful. And I don't know, there's just to me a very silent witness that God is doing some amazing work. We just have to be open to realizing when it's working, and how God brings people together to make it through these difficult seasons. And it was just powerful. It was powerful to watch. And so that's it. That's definitely been one that's fresh on my mind. I have others, but that's probably the big one that's really fresh right now.
Hmm. Yeah.
Listeners, we're definitely grateful for you. Want to encourage you to like us, share us. Don't be afraid to comment as well. We noticed we had a couple of comments from last week's podcast, and we're thankful for those. Listeners, we wouldn't be, well, we would still probably be doing this, but just not with any listeners. But we're definitely grateful for you. 10 years, lots of episodes, lots of fun, lots of comments, lots of even comments after, like, that may not appear online. Those are always powerful too. So we're thankful for you. And so you can find out all of our stuff at beardedtheologians.com. We've got stuff you can buy, past episodes, all the stuff. And so for the Bearded Theologians, I'm Matt Franks.
I'm Zach Bechtold. Thanks for checking us out.
And like this video and push that thumbs up.
Thank you for listening to the Bearded Theologians podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share on all social media outlets. You can check out old episodes and more information at beardedtheologians.com. Thanks for checking us out.